Alright, hey everybody, I'm Garrett. That's my name. I go by Bamfius on Reddit and the Discords, and this is my video where I talk about how Eithan is a reincarnated monarch or something of the like. Alright, so I'm going to try and answer a couple questions in this video. I'm reading off of a document right now. This theory of mine will answer how Eithan knows so much about everything. It explains why he's so much more powerful than everyone else at his cultivation level. And it mainly explains why he came through the portal by himself. I go into what that portal really is. Because of some other stuff, it's kind of a couple combined theories. I will talk about why Eithan has remained an Underlord for so long. Like, what are his motivations behind that? Like, why didn't he just push to Overlord as fast as possible? And it doesn't really have anything to do with the political structure of Black Flame. I'll talk about the Heaven and Earth Purification Wheel, the Jade cycling technique that he learned and taught to Linden, and how that fits into him sort of being a reincarnated monarch. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. Since this is a video, I can't really cite or show anything. I will reference text. And if I put this on YouTube, I will show the video notes or whatever. I'll cite them in the show notes, so to speak. All right, so this is kind of the basis for this theory. We know that the Nine Cloud Court has a way to pass along their monarch powers via succession. Shah Miara was born with Madra so potent. Even if she had no training or she never practiced the sacred arts, her Madra would have been, I think as Will, quoting Will, if a true gold practiced the sacred arts for the rest of their life and spent a fortune on elixirs, her Madra would be more potent than that. So to me, that states she was born beyond the realm of Lord, potentially Herald or Monarch level. Like her spirit was of that level, and that has to do with probably a bloodline ability that the Cloud Court cultivated eons ago. The only other family that has roots to the beginning of the world that we know of is the Arelius family. The Arelius family just lost a monarch. We don't know if that monarch died, but we think that the monarch died because of a word of will that says 6 to 7 years ago, Reagan Shen slew his longtime rival. I wrote up a whole post about this battle that took place and who the potential people were. So you can go read it. I'll link it below. But the gist of it is Reagan Shen, the Weeping Dragon Dread God, had a fight against Northstrider and the Arelius Monarch. We think it took place, and when I say we, I'm talking about the community as a whole, we think that it took place on the Iceflower continent because that is where Naru Gui says the Weeping Dragon was last seen to be active. Now, a lot can happen in the 5 years or so since that battle, but probably the dragon stayed on the Iceflower continent because Cradle is so large. Anyway, that's not really relevant. But a massive battle took place which resulted in the loss of the Arelius Monarch and the assumptive loss and death of Northstrider. So I've talked about all that before. So back to my point of the Arelius family having roots to the foundations of Cradle. A family does not survive in Cradle since the beginning if they do not have some way, shape, or form of quickly reestablishing a monarch. So some form of succession. Will has said that monarchs tend to die. They don't age, and they won't die naturally, but they tend to die, likely due to the machinations of the Dread Gods themselves, how many are awake at one time, or other monarchs conspiring. So that goes to say that there's probably a way that the Arelius family does succession. And I believe that the heir, we know that Eithan is the heir to the Arelius line. He says that vaguely before we realize there's an Arelius branch. He says that in Soulsmith when he introduces himself to the Fishers, the Jai clan, when he's at the top of the Transcendent Ruins. He shows that he's the heir. He has some badge. But at that point, we don't realize who the Arelius family is in context with the wider world. So very likely, he was speaking about the entire clan, the main branch. Okay, so even if he was the heir, how does that make him a monarch? Well, I don't know exactly, but I believe that when the previous monarch died in combat, either their remnant, their spirit, their knowledge, their techniques, something was absorbed by Eithan. Eithan claims he doesn't have a remnant, and that's why he doesn't have a gold sign. But if the monarch was on the same path as him, the path of pure power, I'm just going to call it that, the path of pure power, Eithan, the monarch wouldn't have absorbed a remnant. And if they're pushing people all the way to Underlord without a remnant, then who knows if the monarch even creates a remnant when they die. We don't know what a pure remnant would even look like, because it's not supposed to exist from what we've heard or talked about. So perhaps a remnant doesn't happen. Something else happened. We don't know. But Eithan absorbed something, and he was sent through the gate that occurs every 10 years, which was conveniently happening at the same time as this battle happened, which probably has something to do with it. And so he's the only one that came through. And he came through and then went into hiding, effectively. Probably hiding from Reagan Shen. And he realized, I don't know if he realized it then, but the assumption is that is why he wants to find people to train up to match him, so that he can then start to progress with a team, so he doesn't start to become a genius in a backwater country. And so he starts to build up a team of like strength peers to throw off the scent, so to speak. He went to the branch in the Black Flame Empire because he wouldn't stand out, because there's already an Arelius branch there. He might not have known that there was no Underlord there, or he might have known and whatever. But that's why he's hiding in the Black Flame Empire. That's why he hasn't progressed, because he doesn't want to draw the attention of anyone on the global stage, especially Reagan Shen. Now, back to what his bet was. I don't know what his bet was, but I can only speculate. And in Book 1, Unsold, there is a prominent gate to the labyrinth that opens every 10 years, and it's called the Nether Gate. It is the only entrance we have ever seen to the labyrinth that's called a gate. The only other reference we have to a gate opening every 10 years is the gate that the Arelius family uses to traverse the globe. I think they're connected. Now, there might not be a labyrinth all over the world. I think that there is. I don't think that they're physically all connected. I think that there are labyrinths on each continent that are different, and they're connected by these gates. So I think that the Arelius family uses these labyrinths to travel the world. I think that the labyrinth on the continent where Sacred Valley and all the other books have taken place, that labyrinth is full of Hunger Madra stuff, and that labyrinth is shut down because it's bad news for obvious reasons. So I think that the reason why Eithan came through alone was due to a bet that occurred in the labyrinth where this fight took place. Now, I know there are some other people in the community that think the labyrinth is a pocket world. Could be. And perhaps the reason why Sacred Valley felt the ramifications of this battle was perhaps the Nether Gate had an issue with its last opening, or all the sacred artists that went into the Nether Gate when it opened, died in this conflict. And so Sacred Valley felt the effects of this because they didn't have any more elixirs that this decade or something. That's a pretty new part of this theory, so I don't have it fully fleshed out, but it seems pretty concrete. You've got 2 gates that open every 10 years. They open at the same time, and if Linden and Sacred Valley felt the effects of this battle, and another effect of this battle is that our young Arelius scion comes out of another gate on the same continent after traversing the whole world. He's by himself. I don't know. That's super fishy. Okay, what else do I need to talk through? Okay, this is basically just referencing the mystique of Eithan. So Eithan knows everything. Eithan has knowledge of refining that goes beyond the normal Black Flame knowledge. I'm referencing the Heavens Drop. We've only heard about the type of tool that the Heavens Drop is from Zeal. And Zeal obviously has a mysterious, powerful backstory. So there's that. There's the knowledge that Eithan has of everything else. He knows all about the Dread Gods. He knows all about the Labyrinth. He knows all about all the world powers. He knows all about the Uncrowned Tournament. Now, he could have learned all of these things because he grew up in a Monarch faction. But I think there's more to it than that. I mean, he's so powerful. He's so overpowering against everyone else. The only times we've ever seen him fear for his life that I can think of was when he used the gate key to go, the gate key to go right in front of the Akura main fortress, and he was worried that the 2 Herald remnants were going to kill him. But he did his thing and was fine. He shows no respect to any authority, but he's respectful of your everyday person. He respects strength, but he has no respect for any level of power that we've seen so far. None. There's no respect. Now, the only reason that, there could be multiple reasons, but the reason I think is he has memories or knowledge of being a monarch. When he thought internally about the Sage of 1,000 Eyes, he was almost condescending in the sense that he was like looking down on her, like psychologically looking down on her for not being very wise. She's a sage, okay? She had to be, pretty intelligent. She had to be exceptional at the sacred arts. She was known to be honorable, but Eithan had no real respect for her ability to make wise decisions. So, again, he could have just been a selfish brat, but that doesn't really fit with how he acts towards people. It doesn't fit. Yeah, he grew up super rich. How he talked about getting his raindrop iron body was laughable compared to what Linden went through. So I think that he just has knowledge of what it's like to be a monarch. Maybe he has memories. Perhaps the way that the monarch succession happens is through like a permanent internal dream tablet where you can access the monarch's memories and life and knowledge, techniques maybe. Now we'll get into the jade cycling technique, the heaven and earth purification wheel. Now, Eithan, whatever, is on a pure path. We know this. We know that based on our current knowledge, it's super difficult to cultivate Madra because there's no pure vital aura, so you can't just cycle. You can't pull it in from the outside world to refill your, your core. So we've assumed thus far that the reason why he uses the heaven and earth purification wheel was to deepen his core so much that he never ran out of Madra. Okay, maybe that's probably part of it, but I also think that this heaven and earth purification wheel is part of the succession strategy. Now, if you're going to be absorbing a Monarch remnant or some form of a Monarch spirit, you need to have assumed to have a massive reservoir for spiritual energy or Madra. That's what I think is the purpose and point, the original purpose and point of the heaven and earth purification wheel. Now, obviously, he gives it to Lyndon because Lyndon has 2 suboptimal cores after splitting, so he uses the heaven and earth purification wheel to get those cores back to normal size and then to keep them going. But also because Lyndon has a pure core, and I think that maybe Eithan is preparing Lyndon to be the next part of that succession. So if anything happens to Eithan, he can transfer his spirit or his remnant or his knowledge or whatever the the function is to Lyndon. That's pretty cool. He hasn't taught Lyndon any techniques yet because he wouldn't be able to handle them, according to Eithan's internal thoughts in Underlord. It doesn't really make sense for a sacred artist to only know techniques that function in the Lord realm. What did Eithan use before that? My personal thought is he used some little baby techniques, but when he absorbed whatever he did from the Monarch, he gained access to the techniques of that Monarch that only a Lord could use, Lord and above, because of the amount of Madra needed, the stress that it probably puts on the Madra channels, etc. So that's the only thing I can think of for why Eithan's only abilities have to do with being above a true gold. Because, Lyndon already has a huge pure core. He has a core that's larger than normal sized. So he should be able to learn something from Eithan, technique-wise. But we haven't seen it. So that's what I think is the reason why. Okay. So I think I've covered most of the points that I said I would. We recently saw Will on the Reddit say if you were making a character sheet for Eithan, you would have to max out all of his stats. So basically, you would roll 18 for all of his core stats. That's pretty much impossible to do, and it would make a massively overpowered character in D&D. But if your character is a legendary character that has the memories, thoughts, and techniques of a former level 20, super god, yeah, I could see how they would have maxed out stats. I could totally see that. So anyway, let's move forward. Let's move towards the end of this video. Things to look forward to in Uncrowned, because this is a theory. I don't have anything that can really prove its efficacy other than what I've already talked about. There's plenty of references throughout the books to how mysterious Eithan is, how he seems to be able to just appear from one place to another. He's had a void key since before we knew what that was. Anyway, so what to look forward to in Uncrowned. When we see the other Arelius members, we have been told by Will that we will see what the main Arelius path is, and we will likely see this in Uncrowned. So what to look for is, first of all, what is that path? And then are any of the other Arelius members using a pure path? Because if they are, it might debunk this theory. If Ethan's the only one, or if there's someone younger than Eithan, and by the way, I keep switching back from Eithan and Eithan because I've recently listened to the audiobooks, and Travis says Eithan. So I'm pretty sure that's the right way to say it, but I still have the habit of saying Eithan. So I'll switch back and forth. The next thing to look for is, how do the Arelius members react when they see him? It could be awkward, they could be happy to see him, but because Reagan Shen is going to be there, they will likely pretend he doesn't exist. That's another thing to look for, is how Raken Shen reacts to seeing the Arelius clan. Pardon me. And then seeing Eithan. I think that because Eithan doesn't look, act, or talk like the former monarch, and because he's laid low for 6 years, I don't think Raken Shen will notice him, but maybe. So that will be interesting, because we're going to have a situation where you have 7 monarchs that will be deterring each other from taking action. So if Raken Shen sees Eithan and we get a reaction from a monarch over a nameless Underlord, probably a pretty big sign that Eithan is the basically reincarnation of this asshole monarch's longtime rival. So that'll be interesting. One final little sub-theory about the Uncrowned Tournament. I think that the only reason why it's so hard to get to the top 8 or top 16 or top 4 is that everyone in the top 8 will likely be an Overlord. Every single person. Charity wouldn't have mentioned that progressing during the tournament is allowed if it wasn't commonplace. And they wouldn't, well, maybe they would. They likely wouldn't restrict it to Underlord if progression wasn't a part of the tournament. Because when we're reading, these powerhouses keep talking about how we need to raise up the next round of soldiers to fight the war. Well, the war is happening on a Monarch, Herald, and Sage stage. That's like, those are the power levels that we're dealing with here. So how would a bunch of Underlords fighting against each other be raising up the next group of soldiers? Well, likely because the tournament involves progression in some form. And the only way to get to the top 8 to continue fighting is to progress to Overlord. And then maybe, just maybe, like the final confrontation involves Arc Lords. We've been told that every single person that wins the Uncrowned Tournament becomes a Sage, a Herald, or a Monarch, or they ascend. How can you guarantee that if the winners aren't typically Arc Lords? I mean, it seems pretty straightforward that an Arc Lord could become a Sage. That's how the Sage of Endless Sword did it. He was an Arc Lord before he fought that Monarch. And then when he fought the Monarch, he just had a revelation about fighting with the sword. He redid his path and became a Sage. So that, I mean, I think to win you have to be a freak who eats true golds when you're born, and showcase that by progressing twice in a tournament. That's something I mentioned this in the Discord. People didn't believe it because it doesn't seem believable based on what we have seen thus far with progression. But I think that might be the case, which is why I don't think our main characters are going to win or even get to the final 2. I think maybe Eithan does if he gets like into an argument with any of the cults or with Raken Shen and he just wants to, avenge, or if, a cousin of his gets killed in the team rounds when the Arelius clan branch has to fight against the silent king people, and then they die, and Eithan loses his composure and decides to just, go Super Saiyan 5 and and go all the way up to Arc Lord and just crush everybody. Who knows? But I don't think Linden or Yaren are going to get there. I think maybe Yaren can compete at the top 8 if she doesn't hit Overlord because of her Blood Shadow. I think we likely see our team hit Overlord, so they can keep progressing. We all know Eithan is going to hit Overlord, but will he hit Overlord first? I don't think so. I think the Black Flame team is going to sandbag because Eithan is the team leader, and he will want them to sandbag. He'll probably unleash Narusea. He will probably unleash Yaren, and he will probably act like he sucks. But somehow the team keeps winning, keeps progressing. I don't know if the Monarchs will see through this ruse, but I don't think anyone else will. And I think that's probably what's going to happen with that particular team. And I think that Eithan will push off his progression to Overlord as long as possible to be the most dramatic that he can be. That's what I think is going to happen. So that's what's going on. That's the theory. And this is my first video, and I can already tell you it wasn't as solid as the other theory, because I did this all in one take. There's going to be almost no editing to this. So I hope you enjoyed this off-the-cuff stream of consciousness of my thoughts on Eithan. He's obviously one of my favorite characters because of how mysterious he is. And I hope that everybody who sees this becomes more interested in Eithan and dives back into the books and tries to find more evidence to support this. I think there's a lot of potential for expanding on the Nether Gate and the other gate. I think we might not even get that confirmed until book 8 or 9, after the tournament, when the gate opens up again. I could find it be hilarious if they go in through the gate, attempting to go to the Arelius homeland, and then Eithan, who was delirious last time he came through, can't remember. They take a wrong turn. They come out in Sacred Valley. Awkward. Hashtag awkward. That would be funny. I could see that happening. Or the gate opens, and by that point, Whisper has bonded with Kelsa. Then Jai Long and Jai Chen and Orthos, they all decide to form their B team party and go check out the Nether Gate. And by going into the Nether Gate, they go through a portal, and they run into our favorite team, our favorite A team, in the labyrinth, and they all decide to join forces again. I don't know. There's a lot that can happen, and that's what's cool about Cradle, is that not a whole lot is discussed beyond the specific plot. We are left to theorycraft on our own, and that is a very big reason why, in my opinion, the community has grown so much, and there's so much discussion in between books that keeps this series alive. So I can't wait for Uncrowned, but will take your time. Do not be rushed. You write fast enough as it is. So I'm signing off now. Thank you all for watching.